Let me start by talking to the part of you that feels confused right now. The part of you that keeps checking your phone. The part of you that replays conversations in your head, wondering what changed when it changed and why it feels different all of a sudden. 1 minute everything felt connected and the next minute he's distant, short replies, less effort, more space than explanation. And you're left asking yourself a painful question. Why is he pulling away? Here's what I want you to understand from the very beginning. This moment is not about panic. It's about power. Because how you respond right now determines whether you lose your peace or strengthen it. Most people react from fear. They chase clarity. They over-explain. They give more when they're receiving less. But today, we're not doing that. Today, we're talking about what to do immediately when a man starts pulling away. Not to manipulate him, not to control him, but to protect yourself and restore balance. This message is not about playing games. It's about understanding energy. It's about recognizing that love doesn't grow through pressure, begging, or anxiety. Love grows in confident space and self-respect. And when someone starts drifting, your response can either push them further away or bring everything into clear focus. If you've ever felt the urge to chase someone who's becoming distant, this is for you. If you've ever blamed yourself for someone else's confusion, this is for you. And if you're ready to stop reacting emotionally and start moving intentionally, this is for you. So take a breath, slow your thoughts, and stay with me. Because by the end of this message, you will not only know what to do, you will know who you are, no matter what he chooses next. Stop chasing. Energy never lies. Let me say this clearly because somebody needs to hear it without sugarcoating. The moment you feel a man pulling away, the instinct to chase rises up fast. Your heart starts racing. Your mind starts creating stories. You start thinking, if I just explain myself better, if I just remind him how much I care, if I just show him I'm still here. And without realizing it, you step into pursuit. But here's the truth, chasing never pulls a man closer. It pushes him further away. Energy does not lie. It never has. It never will. Words can confuse you. Promises can delay you. Excuses can distract you. But energy always tells the truth. When a man is leaning in, you feel it without asking. When he's pulling away, you feel that too. And the biggest mistake you can make is trying to fight energy with effort. You cannot overpower emotional distance by doing more. Distance is not cured by intensity. It is cured by space. When you chase, what you're really doing is telling him, without saying a word, I'm afraid to lose you. And fear shifts the balance. It puts him in control and puts you in anxiety. Now every text feels heavy. Every call feels urgent. Every silence feels personal. And the more you chase clarity, the more unclear everything becomes. Not because you're wrong for wanting answers, but because you're asking the wrong way. You're asking from fear instead of strength. Here's something people don't talk about enough. Men don't respond to pressure the way women do. Pressure doesn't inspire commitment in a man. Pressure makes him retreat. When he feels watched, questioned, chased, or emotionally cornered, his instinct is to protect his freedom. That's why the more you push, the more he pulls. And the more you explain, the less he listens. Because now it's not about connection, it's about escape. Think back to the beginning, before the attachment got heavy, before the expectations got loud, before you were checking your phone every few minutes. You weren't chasing then. You were grounded, you were relaxed, you were living. And that version of you is the version he leaned toward. Not because you were playing games, but because your energy was clean. Calm energy invites. Anxious energy repels. Chasing also does something dangerous to your self-worth. Every unanswered message chips away at your confidence. Every delayed reply makes you question your value. And before you know it, you're working harder to be chosen than to be respected. That's not love, that's survival mode. And love does not grow in survival. Love grows in safety, steadiness, and mutual effort. When you stop chasing, something powerful happens. Silence enters the space, and silence has weight. Silence gives him room to feel your absence. Silence removes the pressure. Silence shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, he's not reacting to your effort anymore. He's reacting to the lack of it. And that's when reflection begins. That's when a man starts asking himself questions you could never ask him out loud. Why doesn't she seem pressed anymore? Why does it feel different? Why do I feel her absence now? Not chasing is not manipulation. It's self-respect. It's saying, I'm not here to convince anyone to choose me. It's understanding that real interest doesn't need reminders. Real desire doesn't need chasing. If a man values you, he will feel the shift when you stop overgiving. And if he doesn't feel it, that information is just as valuable, because clarity saves you time, energy, and emotional exhaustion. Let me tell you something important. The goal is not to make him come back. The goal is to stay aligned with yourself. Because when you chase, you abandon your center. When you stand still, you stay rooted. And what's meant to return will return with effort, not confusion, with intention, not excuses, with consistency, not distance. Energy never lies. You don't need to interrogate it. You don't need to decode it. You just need to respect it. When someone pulls away, let them, because the moment you stop chasing is the moment you stop betraying yourself. And when you choose yourself, everything else lines up exactly the way it's supposed to. Go quiet, not cold. Let me clear something up right now, because this is where most people get it wrong. Going quiet does not mean becoming bitter. It does not mean shutting down with an attitude. It does not mean ignoring someone to prove a point. Going quiet is not about punishment. It's about peace. There is a powerful difference between being cold and being composed, and that difference changes everything. Cold energy says, I'm hurt and I want you to feel it. Quiet energy says, I'm centered enough to step back. One is reactive. The other is grounded. And men can feel that difference instantly. When you go cold, the tension rises. When you go quiet, the noise disappears. And silence, when it's rooted in self-respect, carries more weight than any emotional speech ever could. When a man pulls away, your first instinct is usually to talk it out. You want to ask questions. You want to fix it. You want reassurance. That instinct comes from care, not weakness. But if you act on it too quickly, you turn care into pressure. And pressure does not create closeness. It creates resistance. That's why going quiet matters. It removes the pressure without creating hostility. It keeps your dignity intact while allowing space to do its work. Going quiet means you stop over-explaining yourself. You stop justifying your feelings. You stop asking for clarity from someone who is being unclear with their actions. You don't disappear dramatically. You don't announce your absence. You simply return your energy back to yourself. Your tone stays kind, your responses stay respectful, but your availability changes. And that shift is felt deeply. See, when you go cold, a man feels attacked. He feels blamed. His defenses go up. But when you go quiet, something different happens. The space you create forces him to sit with his own thoughts. There's no argument to distract him, no emotional reaction to respond to, just silence. And silence is uncomfortable for someone who is unsure. It leaves room for self-reflection. It gives him a chance to actually feel the distance he created. Quiet confidence disrupts expectations. When you don't react the way he thought you would, it shakes his sense of control. He expected questions. He expected emotion. He expected effort. Instead, he gets calm, and calm makes him wonder. Calm makes him think. Calm makes him feel the weight of your absence without you having to say a word. Going quiet also protects your heart. When you keep talking to someone who is pulling away, you end up reopening the same wound over and over again. Every conversation becomes another chance to be disappointed. Silence closes that loop. It gives you time to breathe. It gives you space to regulate your emotions. It allows your nervous system to settle instead of staying in a constant state of anticipation. This is not about games. It's about alignment. If a man wants to be present, he will notice when you are no longer overextending. He will feel the shift. He will step forward with intention. And if he doesn't, you haven't lost anything. You've gained clarity. Because someone who only engages when you're chasing is not someone who was ever standing with you in the first place. Going quiet sends a message without words. I trust myself enough to step back. It says, I don't need to demand attention to feel worthy. It says, I allow people to reveal their level of interest without interference. That kind of energy is powerful. It's steady. It's unshakable. And here's the truth most people avoid. The way someone responds to your silence tells you everything you need to know. If he steps up, communicates, and shows effort, that's information. If he fades further, that's information too. Either way, you are no longer guessing. You are observing. And observation is always wiser than reaction. Going quiet is not about control, it's about clarity. It's about choosing dignity over drama, peace over panic, self-respect over fear. When you stop reacting emotionally and start moving intentionally, you take your power back. You stop leaking energy into someone who isn't meeting you where you stand. So remember this, you don't need to go cold to be strong. You don't need to be harsh to be heard. You don't need to disappear to be valued. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is to soften your voice, steady your heart, and step back in silence. Because when you go quiet, not cold, you allow the truth to rise to the surface. And the truth will always guide you exactly where you need to be. Shift your focus back to yourself. Let me tell you something that changes everything once you really hear it. When a man starts pulling away, the danger is not losing him. The real danger is losing yourself. Because the moment his distance becomes the center of your world, your peace starts slipping through your fingers. Your thoughts revolve around his silence. Your mood depends on his attention. Your worth starts feeling tied to his response. And without realizing it, you hand over control of your emotional state to someone who is already unsure. Shifting your focus back to yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. You were a whole person before he entered your life, and you are still whole now. But when your attention stays locked on what he's doing, not doing, thinking, or feeling, your energy drains. You stop living in the present and start living in anticipation. Anticipation keeps you anxious. Presence keeps you powerful. Here's the truth. Attraction doesn't come from fixation, it comes from fullness. When you are deeply engaged in your own life, your goals, your passions, your routines, your growth, you emit an energy that feels grounded and complete. That energy is naturally magnetic, not because you're trying to impress, but because you're aligned. And alignment is felt, not forced. When you shift your focus inward, you stop monitoring your phone. You stop replaying conversations. You stop interpreting every small change as a sign. Instead, you redirect that mental energy into something that nourishes you. You move your body. You sharpen your skills. You reconnect with your purpose. You remember the parts of yourself that existed long before this relationship ever began. And in doing so, you rebuild your center. This shift does something powerful to your nervous system. When you're focused on someone else's behavior, your body stays in a constant state of alert. But when you turn your attention back to yourself, your system begins to settle. You breathe deeper. You sleep better. You think clearer. Calm returns. And calm changes how you show up. You stop reacting impulsively. You start responding intentionally. Men feel this shift immediately. When you're no longer chasing emotional certainty from him, the dynamic changes. He no longer feels like the source of your stability. He feels the space. He feels the independence. And that independence doesn't push him away. It reminds him of your value. Because confidence without arrogance and independence without detachment is incredibly attractive. But here's the most important part. You don't shift your focus to get him back. You shift your focus to come back home to yourself. Because when your happiness is not dependent on someone else's consistency, you become unshakable. Whether he steps forward or stays distant, you remain steady. And that steadiness is power. When you focus on yourself, you also gain clarity. You begin to see the relationship for what it is, not what you hoped it would be. You notice patterns instead of excuses. You assess effort instead of potential. And that clarity allows you to make decisions from strength, not fear. You stop asking, how do I keep him? And start asking, is this good for me? This is where transformation happens. You stop shrinking to maintain connection. You stop tolerating uncertainty to avoid loneliness. You stop over-giving in hopes of being chosen. And the more you choose yourself, the less you're willing to accept half effort. Your standards rise naturally, not from bitterness, but from self-respect. There is something deeply attractive about a person who is fulfilled within themselves, someone who enjoys their own company, someone who is moving forward regardless of who is watching. That kind of energy doesn't beg. It doesn't cling. It doesn't chase. It simply exists, and the right people feel drawn to it. Shifting your focus back to yourself is an act of courage. It means trusting that you will be okay no matter what happens. It means believing that you are enough with or without anyone else's validation. And when you truly believe that, you stop operating from fear. You operate from truth. So if he's pulling away, don't collapse inward. Expand outward. Pour back into your life. Reclaim your time, your joy, your direction. Because the moment you refocus on yourself, you stop leaking energy and start radiating it. And when you radiate, everything that's meant to align with you finds its way, effortlessly, naturally, and without force. Let him miss you without reminding him. Let me tell you something that goes against almost every emotional instinct you have. If you want a man to feel your value, you cannot constantly remind him of your presence. Missing someone is not created by words, explanations, or emotional speeches. Missing someone is created by absence. And absence only works when it's real, natural, and unforced. A man cannot miss what he always has access to. If you are always available, always responding, always reaching out, always checking in, there is no space for longing to grow. There is no silence for reflection to enter. There is no gap for his heart to notice what's gone. And when there's no gap, there's no hunger. Emotional hunger requires space. Here's where many people get stuck. They think reminding him of how good they were together will make him feel closer. They think sending memories, messages, or emotional check-ins will spark something. But what it really does is soften the impact of your absence. You turn distance into comfort. You give him the benefits of your presence without the responsibility of showing up fully. And when someone gets comfort without commitment, they don't feel the urgency to step forward. Letting him miss you means you stop filling the silence. You stop reaching for reassurance. You stop trying to manage his emotions. You allow the distance to do what it's supposed to do, reveal the truth, because space doesn't create feelings that weren't already there, it exposes them. If he cares, he will feel the gap. If he doesn't, the silence will make that clear too. Either way, you gain clarity instead of confusion. Missing you is not logical, it's emotional. And emotions don't respond to reminders. They respond to absence. When your voice is no longer there, when your energy is no longer surrounding him, when your attention is no longer guaranteed, his mind starts replaying moments on its own. He remembers how you made him feel. He notices the absence in places he didn't expect. And that's when reflection begins. Letting him miss you without reminding him is also an act of self-control. It requires you to sit with discomfort instead of rushing to relieve it. It means resisting the urge to send one more message just to feel close again. But every time you hold back, you protect your dignity. You tell yourself, I don't need to chase connection. And that internal shift strengthens you. This is not about manipulation. It's about emotional integrity. You are not disappearing to trigger fear. You are stepping back to honor reality. If someone values you, they will feel your absence without being prompted. If they don't, reminding them will not create value. It will only delay the truth. And delaying the truth costs you time, energy, and peace. When you allow him to miss you, you also allow yourself to detach from outcome. You stop measuring your worth by whether he reaches out. You stop counting days and analyzing signs. Instead, you observe, you let his actions speak, and actions always tell the truth louder than words ever could. There is strength in letting go of control. You cannot manage how someone feels about you. You cannot force them to recognize your value. What you can do is remove yourself from situations where your presence is taken for granted. That alone changes the dynamic, not because you are trying to change him, but because you are changing your relationship with yourself. And here's the part most people miss. Even if he does come back, he comes back differently when he's had to feel the absence. He comes back with awareness, or he doesn't come back at all. Both outcomes serve you because you are no longer investing in uncertainty. You are investing in clarity. Letting him miss you without reminding him is one of the hardest things to do because it requires trust in yourself, trust in timing, trust in truth. It means believing that what is meant to return will do so without chasing, and what doesn't return was never meant to stay. So don't soften the silence. Don't explain the distance. Don't remind him of what he lost. Let absence speak. Let space reveal. Because when you stop reminding someone of your value, you finally give them the opportunity to feel it. And whatever he feels in that space will guide you exactly where you need to go next. Observe his response. Don't force a result. Let me tell you something that requires real maturity to accept. Once you stop chasing, go quiet, refocus on yourself, and allow space to exist, your job is no longer to act. Your job is to observe. This is where most people lose patience. They think doing nothing means losing control. But in truth, doing nothing is sometimes the most powerful move you can make. Forcing a result is driven by fear of losing him, fear of being alone, fear of uncertainty, and when fear leads, wisdom steps aside. You start pushing for answers. You start trying to define the relationship. You start creating conversations that feel heavy, rushed, and emotionally charged. But forcing clarity from someone who is not ready does not create truth. It creates resistance. Observation, on the other hand, gives you information without distortion. When you step back and stop interfering with the dynamic, people reveal themselves naturally. You don't need to ask a man where he stands if his actions are consistent and intentional. You don't need to demand reassurance if he is showing up with effort. And if he is not doing those things, that absence of action is an answer in itself. When you observe instead of force, you stop chasing potential and start paying attention to reality. You watch how he responds to your calm. You notice whether he steps forward or fades further. You see if his communication becomes clearer or more distant. And this information is priceless because it removes confusion. Confusion only exists when actions and words don't align. Observation brings alignment into focus. Forcing a result also places you in a position of vulnerability that is not healthy. When you push for answers, you are asking someone else to regulate your emotions. You are handing them the responsibility for your peace. But when you observe, you keep that responsibility with yourself. You remain grounded, you remain steady, you remain in control of your choices, regardless of his behavior. There is something deeply revealing about how a man behaves when there is no pressure on him. Without reminders, without emotional prompts, without expectations being voiced, his true level of interest surfaces. A man who wants you will move towards you. He will initiate. He will communicate. He will close the distance, and he will do it without being pushed. A man who is unsure will stay unsure. And that too is clarity. Observation requires patience, but patience protects you from self-betrayal. It stops you from negotiating your standards in moments of emotional vulnerability. It keeps you from accepting half effort just to avoid discomfort. When you force a result, you may get a temporary answer, but it often comes without conviction. When you observe, the answer comes with certainty. Letting things unfold does not mean you are passive. It means you are intentional. You are choosing to gather evidence before making a decision. You are allowing time to reveal patterns instead of reacting to moments. And patterns are far more honest than promises. This approach also restores balance. When you stop forcing outcomes, you stop positioning yourself as the one who cares more. You allow reciprocity to surface naturally. Either he meets you with effort or he doesn't. Either way, you are no longer guessing. You are no longer hoping. You are seeing. And here's the hard truth. Not every connection is meant to continue. But forcing a result keeps you stuck in limbo. Observation frees you. It allows you to move forward with clarity instead of clinging to uncertainty. It allows you to choose from a place of strength instead of fear. When you observe his response, you also learn how he handles space, uncertainty, and responsibility. These are critical traits in any healthy relationship. Does he communicate when things feel unclear? Does he take initiative? Does he value connection enough to protect it? These answers reveal themselves without confrontation when you allow space to exist. Don't rush the process. Don't chase the outcome. Don't try to control the narrative. Let his actions tell the story. Because the truth does not need to be forced. It needs to be seen. And when you trust yourself enough to observe instead of interfere, you gain the clarity that leads you exactly where you need to be. Choose yourself, no matter the outcome. Let me tell you the most important truth of all, and this is the part that separates healing from heartbreak. At the end of every situation, every pause, every silence, every unanswered question, it comes down to one decision where you choose yourself, no matter how it turns out. Because real strength is not measured by whether someone stays. It's measured by whether you abandon yourself, trying to make them stay. Choosing yourself means you stop negotiating your worth. You stop explaining why you deserve effort. You stop shrinking your needs so someone else can feel comfortable. And this is hard because attachment whispers lies. It tells you that love requires sacrifice at any cost. It tells you that holding on longer will somehow change the outcome. But love that costs you your peace, your dignity, and your self-respect is not love. It's fear wearing a familiar face. When you choose yourself, you accept every possible outcome without losing your footing. If he comes back with clarity, consistency, and intention, you are strong enough to receive it without resentment. And if he doesn't, you are strong enough to walk away without bitterness. Either way, you remain whole. Either way, you remain grounded. You do not lose yourself in the process. This choice is not loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't need announcements or ultimatums. Choosing yourself happens quietly in the moments no one sees. It's in the decision not to send that message. It's in the decision to stop checking your phone. It's in the moment you say, I will not abandon my peace to chase clarity. Those moments build a foundation of self-trust, and self-trust is everything. Choosing yourself also means accepting the truth without resistance. If someone is unsure about you, that is information, not a challenge. You don't fight uncertainty. You don't compete with confusion. You step away from it because the right connection does not require convincing. It feels mutual, it feels steady, it feels safe. And when something does not feel that way, choosing yourself means honoring that discomfort instead of silencing it. This is where many people get stuck. They wait for closure from someone else. They wait for explanations. They wait for apologies. But choosing yourself means understanding that closure is something you give yourself. You don't need someone else to validate your experience. You don't need permission to move on. You decide that your peace matters more than unfinished conversations. Choosing yourself changes how you love in the future. It teaches you to listen to energy instead of excuses. It teaches you to value consistency over chemistry. It teaches you that effort is the real language of love. And once you learn that lesson, you stop accepting less than what you deserve. There is also a deep freedom that comes with this choice. When you are no longer attached to outcome, you stop living in fear. You stop bracing for disappointment. You stop putting your life on hold. You move forward regardless. And forward motion attracts alignment, not because you are searching, but because you are available to what is meant for you. Choosing yourself does not mean you stop caring. It means you care wisely. It means you love without self-betrayal. It means you remain open without being unprotected. And that balance is powerful. It keeps your heart soft while your boundaries stay strong. Here's what you need to understand. Anyone who truly belongs in your life will not be threatened by your self-respect. They will not require you to diminish yourself to stay connected. They will meet you where you stand. And anyone who cannot do that was never meant to stay, no matter how strong the feelings were. So choose yourself when the outcome is uncertain. Choose yourself when it's uncomfortable. Choose yourself when it's hard. Because when you make that choice, you win no matter what happens next. You walk away with your dignity intact, your heart protected, and your future open. And that is the kind of victory that lasts long after the situation has passed. Let me leave you with this truth, and I want you to hear it slowly. When someone pulls away, life is not punishing you. Life is revealing something to you. It is showing you where you've been overgiving, where you've been shrinking, and where you've been placing your peace in someone else's hands. And that awareness is not loss. That awareness is growth. You don't need to chase what's meant to stay. You don't need to beg for what's meant to choose you. And you don't need to fight for clarity when clarity comes through actions every single time. The moment you stop running after uncertainty, you reclaim your power. The moment you stand still in your truth, everything else begins to realign. If he comes back with effort, intention, and consistency, you will recognize it because it will feel calm, not confusing. And if he doesn't come back, understand this, you didn't lose him. You gained yourself. You gained your peace. You gained the strength to walk forward without dragging doubt behind you. Let silence do the work. Let space reveal the truth. Let time